Yeah, so this one, I know for me can absolutely be a significant source of stress. So anything to help eliminate the stress in this process, both on my end, but then also stress for potential candidates if they're in a lot of limbo or waiting when they're looking to get interviews scheduled. So of course, in order to reduce some of these scheduling stress, I don't know about you all, but I tend to have like 6 or 7 different windows open with the email or other maybe the applicant tracking system open with the candidate schedules. I'm cross-referencing that with our internal team schedules. Sometimes I'm scheduling panel interviews, which means I'm looking across 5 to 6 different calendars. And then all of this culminates into me ultimately having to schedule that particular appointment and make the handoff to be sure all of the candidates' application materials, the right time, the right Zoom information, it's all in one spot so that our interviewers know to show up when and to speak with what candidate. So all of these different elements here is a lot to juggle, especially when you're looking to fill multiple open roles. So on the next slide here, Scott, this is what ultimately I do everything possible to be able to prevent. You can probably hear it in my voice when I think about the idea of a candidate being stood up for an interview. This makes me enormously stressed. So whatever possible, I try to avoid this because not only is it a poor candidate experience, if you think about yourself and you're applying to a job and you join an interview and you're either waiting or you don't end up getting to hear from someone, that's an enormous amount of stress. But then on top of that, you then have to go through the rescheduling process to get an interview rescheduled for a later time. All of this at the end of the day, at the end of the recruiting process, results in lost time. And that lost time, again, when your top talent is on the market for only a short period of time, you can't afford to lose that time in addition to the poor candidate experience. So for me, anything I can do to address the scheduling stress is really crucial.
Yeah, and I can imagine that, especially with executive schedules, I'm sure this like scheduling Tetris is just extremely difficult to do. So, well, we do some no-shows, I would say, are unavoidable. We do have an automation that can just help people who might just forget that they have to have this interview, and it can be mitigated with timely reminders. So no one has to go and tap shoulders. No one has time to tap people on the shoulder manually, especially you, Jesselyn. So why don't we try to automate that? And so in this example, we have a workbot that looks at upcoming interviews in your ATS, in this case Greenhouse, and sends a reminder to the interviewer 1 day before the interview and 15 minutes before the interview. So this timing could really be anything that you want. Now, I do want to mention that this is in Slack, and we use Slack a lot in these demos, but this could easily be Microsoft Teams, or this could be an email that is sent directly to the interviewer, for example, like the one you got for this webinar. And these messages can also include all of the details for the interview, for the interviewer, like a Zoom link so they can jump right in, as well as all the information about the interviewer itself, like the interviewee, like the resume. So I know the worst thing is for an interviewer to show up and just really not be prepared or understand who you are. So this can really make that experience extremely nice. So for this one, we also have another demo. And so I'm going to go back to Slack here. And let's say I'm just like in Slack, just waiting for things that just like doing my work. And then I get a message from HRBot. And then I look at this and say, oh yeah, I forgot I had an interview tomorrow. So it's great that HRBot is sending me a reminder. This is 1 day in advance. So it's telling me that I had this interview tomorrow, and it gives me a link to Greenhouse so I can look at that information. In this case, we have a follow-up reminder, and this one would have been sent, let's say, 15 minutes before the interview to let me know that I have this interview coming up. And so this is like 2 ways, just real taps on the shoulder to let me know that I should be prepared for this and set aside time. Obviously, the link helps me get information about the person, but also what's really nice is that I have this join meeting button, which would link to Zoom. And so instead of having to go into my calendar or to find this information, I can just go to join meeting. I know on a day-to-day basis, I use Slack to just join all my Zoom calls rather than having to go to my Google Calendar. So this is just a simple but powerful automation that can just make it easy to, that you can avoid no-shows for the basic reason of forgetting.
Yeah, Scott, I'll add here, as a global company, as much as I like to provide reminders as often as possible, and I try to do that with a personal touch, which sometimes means manually, it's also impossible for me sometimes, especially to catch people right before an interview is supposed to start, because we're on opposite side of the world oftentimes. So for me, this automation is really crucial so that A, I don't have to worry about those reminders, but then B, those interviewers can get the reminders at the right time when they're most likely to remember that it's time to join a meeting right before.